give Rebecca a hand of applause. Great intro, I love that. All right, folks. Well, was lunch good? Yes, good. I know we had a great conversation here. Great food is great. All right, so my name is Mark. I work for a company called Atlassian. Anyone here ever use tools like Jira or Confluence or Trello? Awesome. Then you use our products. And we are focused on collaboration and making collaboration tools. But I'm going to be talking to you today about how we try to make our meetings better and hopefully give you some tips along the way. Now, to start things off, we already had some great conversations at lunch. Let's keep that going. I like to do a little activity. I want us all to say hi to each other. We probably made some new friends. Try to find someone maybe you haven't met. And I want you to do one thing. Find a partner, someone you don't know ideally. I want you to introduce yourself, your name, your company, what you do, and then share what's the best piece of advice you've ever received. What's the best piece of advice? Maybe about 3-4 minutes for that, all right? All right. Find a buddy. Find a buddy. I'll set the time. Clap once if you can hear my voice. Clap twice if you can hear my voice. Clap 3 times if you can hear my voice. I love that technique. It works for kindergartners and it works with adults, right? All right, so what was some of the advice that came up? I'm always curious. What was some of the advice that was bestowed upon you that someone says like, wow, this was it?
I think Adam had the best one.
Oh, what was this? Share it with us.
Go ahead.
All right, Adam, what do you got?
Go ahead, tell him.
Your advice?
Your advice.
Oh. Life is too short for cheap champagne.
Ooh, life is too short for cheap champagne. I love that. What about another one? Oh, Bruce.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. Scott, back in the room there, he had always be learning.
Always be learning. Yeah. You need like a bracelet with that.
So I talked to Bruce, interestingly enough, and he said that as an entrepreneur that he always, oh my gosh, my mind was blank. What was it again?
You got to keep going.
Keep going. So as an entrepreneur, you get your roadblocks, but just keep pushing through.
Just keep pushing through, right? Just keep pushing through. I love it. And so I bring this up because a lot of the advice, even Stan and I, we had a great conversation. A lot of the advice is about learning. It's about trying new things. It's about progressing. And that's kind of what I want to talk with you today about. How do we progress past the traditional ways that we present content? So I'm excited here today, guys, because I'm going to take the next 50 minutes to walk you through these topics. We're going to go through this great deck that we're going to talk about what makes meetings interactive, all this sort of, I can't do it. Talk about the irony. If I sat here talking about throw your slides away and I went through a 60-slide deck. Am I right? I was waiting for someone to step up and walk out at that moment. Be like, nope. I could show you some great slides, some tweetable or whatever we call it now slides. Things that you can put out there, but that's not what the purpose is here. So I actually want to change it up. So y'all want to change it up with me? Yeah, let's do it. So let's get out of this thing. So I just need to transition over. All right, let me get myself presenting. All right. So who here has heard of Miro or Mural or use some sort of whiteboarding tool? Beautiful. So I'm going to actually do this talk using Miro. It's one of my favorite tools. We use it all the time. And hopefully, if anything, if you do use these, you'll find some new tricks that you can do with these too to make your meetings more collaborative. So let's start this thing out again. So again, my name is Mark Cruth. I'm a modern work coach with Atlassian. And today I want to talk to you about throwing away your slides. Now, we're going to cover a couple different things here. I'm going to talk to you about the 5 superpowers that I think a collaborative meeting really brings about in an organization. I'm going to share with you a case study, something that I actually went through last year in my organization where we tried to bring out some new ways of working to our customers, and we had to reimagine how we thought about meetings. Even for a collaborative company, we were struggling with this. And then the biggest thing for me, because at the end of the day, this might be a fun presentation, we might have a blast talking with each other, you gotta be able to take something and use it afterwards. That's the only thing. This won't matter if you don't go try something and make your meetings more collaborative. So I want to give you 5 takeaways that you can use essentially tomorrow or whenever your next meeting is to actually make it a little bit more collaborative. So, in the spirit of collaboration, if you would like to join me, this is the URL and the QR code to actually join this Miro board. You can get in there, password's hike2inno, case sensitive. You go to that, you can actually follow along and watch with us. One of the things I like to do when I do have these kind of collaborative meetings with this is I like to invite people onto the place. Why hold the cards close to the vest when you can actually be part of the conversation? So feel free, no need to do it if you don't want to. But again, it's that spirit of invitation to join me. All right, so let's do this thing. So when I think about a collaborative meeting, there's certain types of meetings that kind of come to mind. So I'd just love to have you maybe throw some out there. When you think of the word or the phrase collaborative meeting, what example meetings maybe come to mind?
One where everyone's the stakeholders that you want input from every single.
You got all these stakeholders, you want their inputs. What other ones?
Discovery.
Workshops. I heard discovery. What other ones? Blueprint. A lot of these things come up, and so when we think about it, we think about things like a brainstorming session, a sparring session, maybe a strategy review or kickoff. We think of those as like those are collaborative meetings, but I'm here to tell you that actually all meetings can be collaborative meetings. Like that's the end of the day. There's no excuse for not making a meeting more collaborative and actually bringing people into the conversation. Now, for me, I think it all comes down to this idea of purposeful design. It's when we think about our meetings, how do we make sure we do things? How do we make sure we get intentional with things like maybe we have an agenda, maybe we have a poll that everyone participates in so that they can add their opinions. Could be even holding just a general brainstorming session in the conversation. And don't forget about the icebreakers. Maybe you have an intentional icebreaker you're going to use. Now, for me, this takes time, For a lot of times we have an hour-long meeting. I usually say that for every hour of meeting, you have about an hour of activities outside of that meeting to prep for that, to make it collaborative. Now, for an attendee, we love this, right? Who here likes to go to those information sharing meetings where you're just being told stuff and you can't collaborate, right? Nobody. Everyone loves going to one where I can actually participate, be part of the conversation. The problem is we think it's awesome. The facilitator says, wait, what? Like, wait, you mean I have to plan out this meeting? I have to do all these things? Like, that's kind of scary. And so what it ends up happening is that we get to the spot where your facilitator is having to make a choice. They're like, all right, am I going to do an information sharing meeting where I'm just going to share with you stuff? I don't want to have to hear from you. I just need to give you content. Or am I going to make a powerful collaboration meeting? And so if you sit there with that struggle, what I want you to do is I want you to consider, well, what are the benefits of that collaborative meeting? So I actually want to share with you some of the superpowers that I see coming out of this. So one of the things that I think a collaborative meeting does that really unlocks is this team mentality. And so Harvard Business Review has put out some great findings on like what it means to feel part of a team. When I feel like I'm part of a conversation, when I'm feeling like I'm part of a greater purpose, my job performance spikes 56%, and my attrition in an organization drops by 50% because I feel like I'm part of a conversation. So it's like, all right, cool. If I can have a meeting that brings everybody in, I can actually help make some significant impacts on our bottom line. It also builds things like psychological safety in your team. At Atlassian, one of the things we research is we actually research the health of teams in the world. We do a biannual report called our State of Teams that basically looks at like how are teams doing today. And one of the things we found that 37% of teams lack psychological safety. And that's such a terrible thing because most of that is due to the fact that teams don't feel like they can be part of a conversation. They don't feel like they can add their opinions in. So if you can design meetings and sessions to help bring opinions in, you can start combating that number right there. Now, ironically, if you get better at meetings, you actually have meetings. Like who would have thought, right? We've actually found in some studies that we've done that 50% of time in meetings is considered waste by most participants. People look at that and says, well, either that could have been shared async, or we meandered around the place for so long that we didn't actually get to the outcome we wanted. So if you put a little intention into this, you'll actually spend less time in meetings. McKinsey does a study out there around this idea of creativity, and I love this because they said that when you bring in diversity of thought, when you bring not just my idea, but your idea and your idea and your idea into that, we see creativity spike by 35%. We get better ideas. And for me, this is where I think about it as I say, people are smart. We come up with good ideas, but when you bring a team together on it, we get wise about it. We start figuring out what's the better idea than that. We use the improv technique of and then. What's the next thing we build on top of that? So for us, we see better outcomes from these more collaborative meetings. And finally, the age-old metric, right? Engagement. Gallup does their yearly survey, and of course, we're seeing today that only about 32% of employees are actually engaged at work. When they look at this, they say engagement is based on things like, feeling like you're part of a group, feeling like you're being heard. And you want to know what's important about a collaborative meeting? You bring people in. You help them feel like their voices matters in that conversation. That's where we can make a huge improvement on our engagement score. And so for me, those are the 5 superpowers of what a collaborative meeting does. Now, this wouldn't be a collaborative session if I didn't have you doing some stuff with me. And so I want to actually bring out a poll. Anyone here ever use the tool Mentimeter? Awesome. I love that tool. It's a great tool if you're ever looking to poll with an audience. It's generally free, but we're going to go ahead and I want to find out. If you go to this page, you hit that QR code, you'll join this poll. And when you do, there'll be a heart on the screen. Give me some thoughts. I want to see once you're there. But what I want to do is I want to find out, of those superpowers, which resonates the most with you? Which one, when you look at it, you're like, if I have to make a decision to make my meeting, spend the time making my meeting more collaborative, I'm doing it because of this, because that really matters to me. All right, I'm seeing some hearts. All right, so here's our question. So I want you to tell me, which of those superpowers of collaborative meetings resonates the most with you? I want to see where we're at. It's always fascinating to me to see when I do this session to find out what matters the most to people. All right, better results is off to the lead. Ooh, saving time on meetings coming up. I think we all have probably too many meetings on our calendar. Oh, I love that. Strong lead with better results. Awesome. All right, tell me a little bit about that. What about having a more collaborative meeting leading to better results resonated with you? Anyone want to share why they voted that way?
It's the whole essence of the meeting, right? Why you want to have, why be there?
Yes. Why have the meeting?
For a purpose.
So true. And to me, I'm a big believer of the fact that I don't think any meeting is actually a bad meeting. It's only badly facilitated meetings. Like all meetings, you could have a calendar full of meetings, and you could have a very productive day, a lot of great outcomes. But most of the time, that's not the reality. Most of the time, we're getting in there and we're like, we didn't get to what we wanted to, or we meandered. So I love that. Any other people who wanted to share? Yeah, in the back.
All of the other things like sort of roll into that, right? You're getting better outcomes, you're getting better team building, you're getting all
of this happens, right? Exactly. And that's the top of the top of the cake, right? Oh, I love it. I saw one more hand.
Our team's been doing things sort of in the meeting, things are getting accomplished, so you don't have to have a sub or follow-up or parking lot meeting after that.
Oh, God. You have a planning meeting and then a planning meeting for your planning meeting and those sorts of things. Like, it's something's broken then. Awesome. Thank you for participating in that. So that just shows you kind of what we're looking at here. So let's head back into here. So to me, I think that's why collaborative meetings are awesome. They're a great mechanism to help unlock a lot of these. And again, that better outcomes, I do agree that a lot of that comes with it. Now, this is a lot of theory. This is a lot of cool thought leadership stuff. I want to tell you some real stuff. I want to give you a real story about what my team went through with this. So I want to tell you about this is the one thing sometimes with this is it will. Let me try again. Real life, this is what it's all about, right? This is what it's all about. Here, I'm going to come down. See, this is where you can play with this. All right, here we go. Now we're in a good spot. There we go. So I want to tell you about a program that I was on, a team I was on. It was called Dr. Wow, or Ways of Working. You can see how we got clever there, right? We were talking about ways of working at the table over here. The whole point of this program we started, and it was last January we did this, was to say, for us at Atlassian, we care a lot about teamwork, and we care a lot about our practices, and so we've invested a lot in that over the last 20 years. We actually publish those practices in a free resource we call our Team Playbook. There's 50 practices out here of things we do around decision-making, roles and responsibilities, working agreements, all that stuff. And we thought, we published it out there, but how do we help enable our customers on it? And so the idea of this Dr. Wow program came about. It says, hey, for free, we are going to go work with our customers and help them kind of examine their ways of working and get better, because one of the things for us is going to lead to them having a better experience on our products. And so we said, all right, we're going to do this. It's going to be great. We're going to have an awesome time. And so we recruited a great product owner, and I want to tell you about him. So meet Dan Radigan. Dan is one of those guys where he speaks kind of in a soft tone, but when he talks, it's like you are like inspired. You're like taken back. You're like, wow, I want to do what that guy says. And so he's our product owner. He's the guy who's going to inspire for our team with our customers. And he went off to the mountains. He lives in California. So we went off to like Tahoe. And he went and built this presentation to pitch our idea of Dr. Wow to our customers. He comes back, and it's a work of art. I mean, 60 beautiful slides. I like to joke around that if I had music and I put it to him, I think we probably would have cried when we were watching it. It was like that touching. And so we're going through this, and we're about 30 slides in, and we say, I love the presentation, but it doesn't resonate. It's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to change our customers' ways of working. We're just doing the same thing we've always done. So he says, Dan, what if we kind of turned this all around and we did something very different? Dan's like, I'm all ears. Go for it. So me and another guy went off, and we started saying, how can we make this a much more of a collaborative session? Because we didn't want that pitch session to be just one where we tell them something for 45 minutes, wait for questions, think we nailed it because they didn't have any questions, and then nothing happens. So what we did is we built the following page. This was actually done in Mural, so another tool like Mural. And what it was, it became a conversation canvas that we would have with a customer. I kind of want to walk you through why we did it this way, because the whole idea was we wanted our customers in the conversation with us. We'd start out talking a little bit about where we wanted to go that day. We wanted to do some introductions, talk about their problems, what they're trying to do. We'd have introductions across the board, and then we'd make sure everyone got in the Mural, like our customers. They got in there with us. Because the first thing we did was we say, all right, hey, what are your goals around your ways of working? What are you trying to do? And we actually had them write it in the thing. They were the ones doing it, not us. We had them talk about what challenges they had by moving stickies and little check marks to things. And if there was something missing, they would add it on there. The whole goal was to get them talking to us and sharing these ideas. And it was really cool because we were talking back and forth, sharing ideas. And then as we led into the next section, which is where we were talking about what we believe and what we're trying to do, this wasn't us just reading out a bunch of stuff. As we went through each thing, we were talking about it. We were having a conversation with that customer. And it was amazing to see how this flowed then all the way into the latter half, which became, hey, we want to find out if you're interested in this. And what we ended up doing even is at the end, we said, hey, using these little thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs sideways, move this to where you think you can commit. Like, where do you feel comfortable? We had certain things we needed from them. How comfortable are you with that? And it was amazing to see how they hit that, because I don't know about you, but before the pandemic, I'd go to a customer, we get in front of a whiteboard, and when we talk about something, the way I got them to interact was I give them the pen. I say, go to the whiteboard, show me. Well, and during the pandemic, that became a little hard. And so we said, this is our way. This is our way of giving them the pen to drive a better conversation. And so we ran about 30 of these. And it was amazing to see how many of those then moved into actual us working with that customer. This was something where, traditionally we would see just a handful. We had 15 customers who took us up on this. So yeah, we want you to come work with us, because they realized we understood their problem. What's really cool, the thing I'll always take back from this one is when we went through with one customer, we only had 30 minutes with them. Got through about halfway, and then the customer says, I gotta leave, but I want to do another 30 minutes to keep the conversation going, because they love the conversation. It wasn't just a pitch, it was a conversation. There's a question.
First question.
Yes.
Can we ask questions now?
Oh, wait for a little bit. Okay. Hold on to that question. First question. Exactly. I love that. So that was the whole idea of this pitch. It was this whole idea of trying to create a more immersive experience. So out of that, we've changed the way we now do these conversations with our customers. Now, from here, my hope is that you're like, cool, I love this idea of a collaborative meeting. I want to try to do this. And you might say, well, I'm going to go sign up for Miro, and I'm going to go use it with my teams. And people are going to be like, what the hell are you trying to do? Like, I don't even know how to use this tool. So a lot of times we need to start somewhere. So I want to share with you now a couple tips that you can use, because I'm a very practical guy. I think you got to use something out of this. I want to share with you 5 things that you can use in your very next meeting to actually make it a little bit better. These will be things that you can take home and hopefully actually spark some creativity, some collaboration. So the first one we have is actually making sure we have an agenda. Now let's be honest with ourselves here. When we look at our calendars and we look at the meetings we set up, how many of us really set up agendas? Some of us, yeah, sometimes. I think that's the right answer. It's probably like, kind of, like I'm guilty of it too. Because a lot of times it's difficult to do that. But it's amazing the time, if you put into building out an agenda, how that will drive an outcome in a session. Whether it be, hey, we want to hit these points. This is the goal of the meeting. Or it could be something that's like, hey, these are going to be the speakers, and we're going to set aside time for collaboration. The whole idea is getting intentional with this. Now, the QR code here is actually going to a template that we use, and this is how I've gotten really good at making agendas now, is we actually have a template in Confluence that allows us just to spin up a meeting agenda. And so I use this for every meeting because I just go create it, fill in my items because it's already set up for me. My cognitive load isn't there. And so all of a sudden now I can actually set up an easy agenda, blast it out. It's a great day for everybody. And it's helped me get my meetings better. So regardless of what tool you use, come up with an agenda. It's amazing what that will do to drive better collaboration. Another big one for me is icebreakers. So icebreakers are sometimes looked at as like a fun, kind of almost silly thing to be brought in, but that's only if you don't look at icebreakers as a way to drive the vibe you want to have in that conversation. I think icebreakers, the secret superpower they have is that you can actually have somebody think about, change their perspective going into a meeting by asking the right icebreaker question. Now, I remember I think it was probably about 6 years ago, I was working with a company, and what we did is we were going into a big kind of like prioritization session. We had a lot of senior leaders. Some people weren't going to be happy. It wasn't going to be, we were all dreading that session. Well, I decided to start out this session as a facilitator to say, hey, we're going to do a little icebreaker. So I want us to go around the room, and if we were a weather pattern, what weather pattern would you be? Exactly. You got some initial chuckles. Like, okay. Go around the room. I remember we had a vice president in the room of our product team. We get to him, he says, I'm sunshine and rainbows today. I'm excited to see where this goes. And everyone just loses it, everyone just laughs. And what that did is it just cut the tension in the room. It popped it. All of a sudden we realized, we're all just humans trying to get a job done. And we went into that session much more energized than we were before. And so for me, using an icebreaker, as silly as that is, actually helped to create a better meeting. Now for me, I think wouldn't be appropriate if I didn't give you a couple icebreaker questions to try out for yourself. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to do one more quiz with you all. And I want to find out I want to ask you a couple icebreaker questions, give you some exposure to these. And I want to find out when I think I would ask one. So hit that, give me some hearts when you get there. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so the first question I've got for you, if I click on the screen, is would you rather never hear music again or lose the ability to read? Oh, that's a tough one, right? Where are you at? Okay, lose the ability to read, never hear music. Oh, this is a tough one. All right, so we've got our numbers. So lose the ability to read is by far leading out. Now, I'm not gonna ask for the why on that. That's not the reason. I want to know from you all, why do you think, or actually maybe more the better question is, when do you think I would use an icebreaker question like this? What sort of situation might I be going into that would result in me saying, I should ask that question? Yeah, in the back.
Something about visualization.
Could be something about visualization we have, but other ideas we got. Prioritization, that's a big one. That's one I've used this one in the past for. It's like, no one's going to be happy, so we got to find a balance. Accessibility conversations. You can see how each one of those are right, as long as you're thinking about it in that lens, and that's how you're approaching it. So for me, it's always about finding out what's the vibe I want them thinking about as we go into this. All right, so next question. This is a good one. Is breakfast cereal with milk a soup? Oh, this is the tough one. This is the one for the day right here. What do you think? Is breakfast cereal with milk a soup? Ooh. Is it more like a bisque? Maybe I should have said bisque, right? All right, where are we at? Oh, it looks like majority are saying no. So beyond the fact that this is an amazing question, when do you think I would ask this one? Why do you think I would ask this one? Yeah. Yes, that's the biggest one I've used for this. Now again, every answer, I always believe that there's a reason there's a good answer. I've used this before when I need to share that there are different perspectives in the room than yours. And the majority of the people might share a particular perspective, but there are 4 of us in here that believe that it is a soup. So we gotta make sure we consider that. So there you go. So thank you again for participating in that. Any other thoughts on this one? I thought I saw a hand, so okay. I didn't see a hand. All right. Let's keep our journey going. I gotta go back in, hit that thing. Present, and we're back. All right, so the next one I have is this idea of icebreakers are there to help kick off a session, but how do you make a session more collaborative in the middle part? And this is this idea of liberating structures. So has anyone here heard of liberating structures? Awesome, because now you all have. Now you will have all heard of it. If you go to that QR code, it'll actually take you to their page. And what it is, it's a set of these practices that you can follow to help inject some more collaboration into your meeting. It could be things like, let's see here, you can have an open space conversation. It tells you how to run that open space. You could be having a shift and share, which is all about trying to change perspective. These are activities that you can do to try to get to a specific outcome. Now, one of my favorite ones of these is called 1, 2, 4, all. Now, 1, 2, 4, all looks kind of like this. And let's say we had to find an answer to something. Let's say the answer we needed to come to was your favorite icebreaker question. Well, in this case, what I do is I'd say, all right, let's all individually think about what's our favorite icebreaker question. We come up with that answer. We then come into groups. We do pairs, and that pair would then talk about it, and they come up with one. That pair and that pair would come together. They come up with one, and so forth, all the way till we had that one icebreaker question for the room. And so for me, I've actually used this, like I was working with a software team once. We had a production issue, and we weren't sure how we wanted to solve it. So normally I could ask, hey, what do we all think? And I had some great software devs in my room. But the thing is, some of them, they weren't necessarily the ones that was going to raise their hand and say, hey, this is my idea. So I said, you know what, we're going to run a quick round of 1, 2, 4, all. We say, come up with how you think we should solve this. Then you're getting your pairs and so forth and so forth. So we ran through the exercise. We get to the end. It says, they come up with an idea. Brilliant idea. It says, who came up with it? This guy named Kyle raises his hand. He is one of those guys that never raises his hand in a session. And it just so happens to be that his idea, because we went through this mechanism, was able to emerge versus me just saying, what's the idea? Because I'd probably get a couple of the guys raise their hands because they were the vocal ones. I never would have heard from Kyle. So for me, 1, 2, 4 all is a fantastic exercise to bring everybody into that conversation. All right, so liberating structures, you can take a look at that. Now, another thing that I always care about here is about your space. So I absolutely love that we set up this space like this. You have the round tables. You could have that initial conversation, things like that. It's building the right vibe. If we were lecture seating, it would feel very much like this was just going to be a one-way conversation. So I always say, think of your space. Like for me, if I get a chance, if I'm running a meeting and I can set up the space, I try to set it up in like a horseshoe shape. So that way everyone can talk and we can have that kind of face-to-face collaboration. Now for us at Atlassian, one of the cool things we've done is we're a fully distributed company, but we have offices and we're building new offices. And this one right here is from Austin, Texas. Opened up last year, and the fun fact about this one is that it's got capacity for 1,200 people, but we probably only have like 50 desks in the whole building. The rest of the space looks like this. And the idea is when people come to this office, we want them collaborating on things. It's not about coming to work to sit at a desk. It's about coming to work with your team and solve problems. So let's create spaces that are conducive to that. Now, when you're remote, this is where I do my problem solving. Welcome to my beach. You can see my desk over here. I've got it with the chairs on the water. I've got the tiki hut, which is where my meeting space is. I show this because this is actually a tool called Welo, and it's a tool that Atlassian has invested in. And I love it because what it does, it integrates with Zoom, and it allows me to have a meeting, but have a sense of physical space. I can have, just like in this image, I can have people sitting around in chairs and looking at each other, even just digitally. It doesn't change, like I'm still here, but there's a psychological element of me sitting across from somebody that subconsciously I don't even know is there that makes this a better conversation. So I like to play around with spaces even digitally to help me. All right, so the last tip I have for you, and that is always be learning and investing in learning new ways to make your meetings better. And one way we do this is we have continued to share at Atlassian ways that we make meetings better. And this is a free course that we've got out there. So link, the URL will actually go to a YouTube page that is 30 minutes long, and it shares a bunch of tips and tricks for, again, how we make our meetings more collaborative. So I always like to share this out because it gives you a mechanism to kind of, again, try out some new things, explore the ideas. And if you don't mind hearing my voice, you'll hear it again for another 30 minutes if you watch that. So just saying. All right, so that's our 5th tip. And that's where we've been. So you can see how we kind of moved around the space. We use this to kind of drive our conversation. And you can see these are just the musings in my head. This is just what I think about. So as we look to kind of close this thing out, I imagine sometimes people have this thought when I do this presentation. And that is, they think to themselves, all right, Mark, love what you did with Miro, but there's Keynote and there's PowerPoint. Why don't you like those tools? Like, you just hate those? And, who hurt you with those, It's like, it's not that I hate those. I actually love Keynote and PowerPoint, I find. Actually, I love the animations. I have all the pretty things I can do with it. But I find you got to know the situation in order to be able to use the right tool. It's like any problem. So maybe if I'd use Keynote or PowerPoint if I had a large room of people I'm talking to. Maybe I'm doing more one-way information sharing. Maybe I want to leave some inspiring quote on the screen to help you think about things. And, as I look at this now, I'm kind of thinking maybe I should have used Keynote, but you know what? I liked using Miro. So we had a good time in Miro. So when we leave here today, as I mentioned, the biggest thing I want you to do is actually think about what actions you're going to take. So let's actually lead with that. Let's actually take some action. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go in, and I want you to think about and identify one meeting you want to make more collaborative, something that you want to make better. I want you to pick a tip that you're going to use to apply to that meeting. And then ultimately, I want you to share that tip back with me and say, hey, this is what we did. I tried this thing, this is the outcome. Now, as a presenter, a lot of times we add these calls to actions we never hear back. And so for me, I always want to hear back, so I like to incentivize this. So those icebreaker questions. I've been collecting icebreaker questions for probably like a decade. I think I have about 500 that I've collected just over the years. And I've distilled those down to about 100 icebreaker questions that I think are the best. If you send me, whether it be an email, tweet, LinkedIn post, whatever it is, if you let me know what you tried and how it went, I'll send you that list of those 100 icebreaker questions. They'll make you the king or queen of icebreakers in your organization or with your customers. I'm telling you, they're good lists. All right, so to kind of wrap this thing up with some final inspiration, since we're in Keynote, we got to be inspiring when we're in Keynote. I want to wrap this up by saying, you need to remember that you are the key to making your meetings more collaborative. And yes, I do mean you. So these tips, things that you try, it's all about experimenting. It just goes back to the greatest advice that we all received. It's all about trying new things. It's all about trying to push through barriers that we have. And so go out there and try this, explore. What's the worst that can happen, right? If you've already got a bad meeting, you can make it a little bit better. And with that said, that's all I got today, guys. I will open it up for questions and all that kind of stuff, but thanks so much.